Greetings, friends, and welcome back to our archives. I have been expecting you. Today, our archivists have just returned from a research excavation in the tombs of Korriban and the Death Star 2 ruins, and have recovered some ancient databanks relating to the powers and abilities of both Darth Malgus and Darth Vader, twin titans of the dark side who both played an instrumental role in the Star Wars galaxy, with Malgus actually providing a lot of the inspiration Vader got for his own lightsaber techniques, ideologies, and philosophies over 3,700 years later. Darth Malgus was an exceptionally talented duelist, as well as Vader, both mirrored in their power in the dark side, with Darth Malgus serving Sith Emperor Vitiate for a time, until he became disillusioned, very similar to Anakin becoming disillusioned with the Jedi, believing that their corruption led to their downfall. But who, out of these twin titans of darkness, is truly the most powerful? Which monster and abomination of death has truly staked their claim as the more powerful? Let us break it down, starting off with the most famous, Darth Vader. Darth Vader, when initially gaining the suit, was a more clumsy, using his enhanced strength and utilized his various mechanical limbs and organs in order to be able to overwhelm his opponents using pure brute strength. Darth Vader was capable of performing some ridiculously impressive feats of strength utilizing his lightsaber skills, and after the utilization of such maneuvers such as Ataru-esque acrobatics, and despite it being considerably more difficult than it had been, causing him to typically refrain from making use of them, the Dark Lord proved to be still fully capable of performing such acrobatics when pressed. In the end, he was a more effective warrior than he had been before Kenobi had maimed him on Mustafar. Vader proved to be able to effectively apply this personalized variant in many ways, sometimes opting to fight one-handed, utilizing an unorthodox form of Makashi, as he learned from Count Dooku throughout the Clone Wars, relying on precision and economy of movement, but thanks to his added strength and prosthetics that he bestowed to him, he maintained a great deal of his physical power. He demonstrated this method against the likes of Oli Starstone and Luke Skywalker. When forced onto the defensive, Vader apparently utilized Sarisu in his own customized manner, using his armor, would fight with a two-handed grip, elbows pressed tightly to his sides with his blade held straight out in front of him. In the end, Vader's lightsaber style was considered to be indomitable, almost unstoppable in fact. Darth Vader was considered the greatest Sith swordsmaster to ever live, perhaps by exception of Tulak Hord and Exar Kun. Darth Vader utilized his brute strength to batter down effortlessly his opponents in his path, and was unquestionably the most skilled and formidable Jedi Slayer of all time. Darth Vader was able to murder a highly trained Jedi Master. However, they had exiled themselves from the Jedi Order years prior, straight after Order 66, executing them to take his own lightsaber in the Vader 2018 comics. Darth Vader, his harrowing and tyrannical dark armor, allowed him to prowl and instill fear within his enemies, a main factor, as he would cause them to make a mistake due to their fear, their rage, and their pure utter terror of him. Now, let's move on to his Force abilities. Because his body had been severely burned on Mustafar, Vader was thought to have lost much of his Force potential and midichlorian count, although nonetheless he retained an exceptionally high midichlorian count. Sidious still noted Vader would remain extremely powerful, although he openly admitted that he had not bargained for an apprentice who was more machine than man. Sidious noted that Vader's powers were limited not because of his injuries, but because of Vader's psychological maiming, and had fully believed that should Vader ever fully confront his choices and completely shake himself out of despair, he could fully harness the incredible powers he had as the Chosen One. This seems to be partially proven by how Vader regained much of his self-confidence, and he became the most powerful Sith Lord in galactic history, or at least one of the most powerful. In fact, he was known to become overall stronger than he had ever been before Mustafar as of 0BBY. However, Vader always remained haunted to unseen levels by the choices he had made, to the point of even being able to become briefly insane during his mission to Atoa. Vader was able to implement force chokes, telekinetically manipulate people, snap their necks. He was able to move ridiculously heavy objects, such as an enormous stone inlaid with runic patterns, to squish Lord Momen during the construction of his castle. Darth Vader was able to telekinetically manipulate various objects as he employed during his duel with Luke Skywalker, was capable of using Tutuminus to a devastating effect to absorb and repel back the energy of blaster bolts. He was able to feed off the fear of his enemies, using it to augment his own strength. Vader also installed multiple different unique lattices into his suit that protected him a slight amount against Force lightning. So that way, if he never needed to come blow to blow with his master officially, he would have a way to at least slow down the instantaneous death. He also learned from his mistakes and trained and studied in the ways of the Force, especially the dark side much more extensively, with his mastery of the Force growing to tremendous levels, enough to use the Force to overpower almost any opponent if he could not defeat them with his lightsaber. Had none of the events on Mustafar ever taken place, he would have been the most powerful Sith Lord in galactic history, far more powerful than the Emperor. As it was, the Jedi Knight Jax Pavan acknowledged that he had never encountered a Force user as powerful as Vader, and that it would be foolish for the Emperor to not fear him. He also was capable of utilizing multiple defensive techniques. Vader was capable of pulling ceilings down on people, resisting explosions, and even in the 2018 Vader comic edition, Vader was able to cocoon himself in a shield of Force energy to save himself from the lava that was embedded within his flesh. A more pristine and explicit example of this was Vader was thrust into the lava lake on Mustafar and had to cocoon himself using the Force, blocking the lightning out. Vader also was technically able to use Force lightning in a method, with Vader being able to project bolts of electricity. However, this took and was taking place outside of his body and not actual Sith lightning. Now, let us move on to my favourite Sith Lord of all time, Malgus. Darth Malgus' lightsaber training was none to be feared. He was an exceptionally talented duelist and specialised in using rage and pure brute strength to overwhelm his opponents, aside from his overwhelming physical stature, which served him well not only in lightsaber duels but also in hand-to-hand combatancy. Malgus also performed acrobatics to increase his effectiveness in lightsaber combat. His speed was such that a normal human found it difficult to watch his movements during duels. A ferocious Sith warrior with a tyrannical reputation, Malgus relished engaging in combat on the front line, and was personally responsible for the deaths of several highly skilled Jedi Masters. Malgus has shown to employ Jar Kai in various situations, such as during the retaking of Korriban, where he employed this style to kill Jedi Battle Master Cal Kandaraj, despite the latter's proficiency in the same style, and victory over Malgus' own master Darth Vindicant mere seconds prior. He was able to use strength, rage, and clear focus to gain an advantage and allow him to swiftly deprive Cal of one of his lightsabers and finally slay the Zabrak Jedi Battle Master. Years later, during the sacking of Coruscant, Malgus managed to impale Jedi Master Ven Zalo in a short but ferocious duel. Zalo was regarded as his most famous kill multiple times. Another example of this was shown during his fight with Jedi Padawan Sahar Kati, when Malgus, after murdering her master Denlam Orr and relinquishing him of his lightsaber, he was able to fight and utilize Jar Kai against the enraged Padawan. Even as he got older, Malgus remained a fierce duelist that managed to fight against both masters and Padawans simultaneously. Malgus had an incredibly powerful Force attunement, utilizing a plethora of Force techniques during the sacking of Coruscant to defeat many Jedi and Republic soldiers who stood in his path, including Saber Throw, using telekinesis to guide it to decapitate multiple enemies at once. Force push, choke, jump, speed, and lightning. Malgus used his emotions, such as anger and distaste of others, to fuel his power of the dark side, and demonstrated the skill and power to handle multiple opponents simultaneously with little to no effort. In one instance, Malgus unleashed a powerful blast of Force lightning, unleashing tendrils of electrical energy, and murdered 3 Jedi with it, their flesh incinerating. Malgus himself could tolerate Force lightning attacks. During his duel with Lord Adras, Malgus strode through the barrier of Force lightning from his opponent using his lightsaber and fingers as a conduit, redirecting it back at him to knock his opponent off his feet. He perfected his application of Force lightning to a degree from which he could unleash a Force maelstrom, pioneering this technique. during the Battle of Ilum. He demonstrated the application of 2 to Minus when fired at by either Voidhound, Meteor, Hunter, or Cypher 9, absorbing the blaster fire with one hand. Being strong in the Force, Malgus was proficient in the applications of telekinesis and could counter-push his opponents mid-air while they would jump towards him to knock them out in the process. During the duel with Aaron Lena, Van Zalo's former Padawan, he demonstrated the capabilities to hurl objects as missiles towards his opponent. He could also perform Force Grip and Force Crush to devastating effect. Malgus also perfected Force Screams, the same ability used by Palpatine to briefly stun Mace Windu, Sayasay 10, Kit Fisto, and Egan Kolar, to make his hatred apparent to his opponents surrounding him, as well as destroy enemy fighters within range, splitting open ears. During his raid of the Jedi Temple, Malgus unleashed his power with an expression of his rage, which shattered a nearby column of wall and sent a shower of piercing stone shards through the room when his friend and lover, Alina Daru, was struck down by his most powerful opponent, Zalo. Malgus used this ability once more during his raid of the resting place of Lord Adras, making his hatred for him explicitly visible, by leaving a trail of destruction around him with it, during his advance towards his powerful Sith rival. Malgus employed Force Speed to augment his physical movements when he engaged Jedi Knight Aaron Lena in a duel. An observer attempted to watch them, but could not properly discern their movements because of their immense speed. Later on, Malgus used his ability once again while he was rushing towards the hangar in the spaceport to rescue Alina Daru from a threat, leaving the troops accompanying him behind. On Alderaan, a Zabrak Jedi used the Force to collapse twin buildings on Malgus in an attempt to kill him. Malgus stood under the mountain of rubble composed of building parts made of duracrate and steel, preventing it from crushing him beneath with the Force. Malgus manipulated his anger and sharpened his power. He blew the rubble up and away from him, sending it crashing into adjacent buildings. Malgus also performed Force Wave when he had attempted to disperse a large crowd gathered outside medical facility in Coruscant to check on Daru. The blast shoved everything away from him in all directions. Bodies slammed into each other, walls and windows. The nearby transport lurched, and all the doors of the medical facility broke loose and fell to the ground. On Alderaan, Malgus also faced Jedi Master Satele Shan, who would later become the Grandmaster, and one of the youngest Grandmasters ever. Malgus was capable of tanking her Force burst attack, Satele creating a ball of pure Force energy using her Force attunement that she inherited from both Bastila Shan and Revan. Revan, you heard me. Revan, the legendary hero of the Mandalorian Wars. She was able to unleash this ability and severely injure Malgus. Before this, Malgus had tanked a rocket, a grenade, mere meters away from him, and still felt no pain. After this, he continued to fight, and only required his respirator due to the severe damage done to his lungs. He was severely injured, but he survived, and felt no pain. Malgus could also hide his presence in the Force. Interestingly, a Jedi in Alderaan used his ability to suppress his signature when he planned to ambush him, but it was ineffective. Malgus still managed to depict his presence and foiled his plans. Malgus was so strong in the Force that it took various Force users to immobilize him on Elam all at once. Darth Malgus was an exceptionally skilled Force adept, creating the Force Maelstrom ability. Force Maelstrom is essentially where you create a shield of protective energy. You then use telekinesis to rotate your enemies in the air, then unleash bursts of catastrophic and devastating Force lightning to incinerate them. Darth Malgus truly staked his claim as one of the most durable Sith of all time, being able to tank almost any single point of damage, his rival being Satele Shan, being able to best her almost every time except a few. Darth Malgus was an exceptionally powerful Sith Lord and will remain so in the near future. Malgus, despite his limited cybernetics, utilized his cybernetics and pure brutish strength and power in order to overwhelm his opponents. One last thing I'd like to mention about Malgus is that he was entirely, unlike Vader, immersed in the darkness. Vader always had conflict brewing within him, squirming and writhing like an agonized snake. However, Malgus was fully immersed in the darkness. He did not reject it. He accepted it and used it to the best of his ability. Now, my friends, this is where we part ways. Before we leave, I would like to note that the winner of this duel, with all the facts laid out on the table, is going to be Darth Vader. but only by a slight margin. Darth Vader certainly had less experience than Malgus, as Malgus was a military general and tactician for many years. However, Vader's pure brutish strength and dueling prowess, in my opinion, purely outmatches Malgus, despite the fact Malgus could use Force Lightning, which I believe would be one of the ways he would be able to defeat Vader. I personally believe that Vader would be able to remain victorious, but only just. In the end, you could essentially call it a tie, as I personally believe that these two beings are equally matched. But if I had to pick one, I would begrudgingly choose Vader. Now, my friends, this is where we part ways. I hope that I'll see you wandering the spaceport on Mos Eisley, and I'll see you in a galaxy far, far away.